What is up, YouTube? Guys, Jericho426 coming at you with another Marvel Contest of Champions video. And today, guys, this is not meant to be a rant video, let me say first off. This is merely a video that encompasses some of the problems that I have seen with some of the newer champions and the buff champions, especially from 2021, and maybe what I would like to see or where I think the game should shift going further. So again, this is not a rant video, but kind of merely an expose, if you will, on the game itself. Let me say before I get started on anything, though, that I'm a little bit under the weather, and so my voice might sound kind of weird, or I might hack and cough or something like that. Hopefully not too bad. But I'm going to try to muddle my way through this because this is a video I would like to get out before the end of the year, and I did commit to a schedule for you guys, so I'm determined to keep to that schedule. So, getting right into it, guys, I am using Aunt M or Aunt May to kind of show off the 2021 champions that we have had. And as you can see, we have not had a full list of bad champions this year. In fact, there have been many good champions. Yeah, Anti-Venom, Hercules among one of the best champions in the entire game. Some people would say the best champion in the entire game. Null, Mr. Negative, Nimrod, all good champions. Penny Parker, Strife, and even, maybe going back on what I said on my initial review of him, Spider-Man 2099. So we have had a lot of good champions. Oh, and Shang-Chi. Can't forget about Shang-Chi. He's one of my favorite champions in the game. So, guys, we've had a good year of champions, but we've also had a year of buff champions, and some buffs have been really good, and some buffs have been really bad. And overall, I'd say maybe every buff has been almost better than the original incarnation of the champion. I think some people might disagree with that when it comes to Guillotine. Maybe arguments can be made either way. I'm not a big Guillotine player. You guys could tell me either way. I know what the consensus is around the interwebs, and I know that Kabam is looking at changing stuff with her. But other than just individual champions on a base like that, I want to look at three main champions as to why I feel there are issues. Excuse me, I just got an alert. Why I feel there are issues with what has been happening with champions lately, and really the last three champions of the year, and that being Icarus, Cersei, and Kraven. Now let me get this out of the way that I really like Cersei. I really like Kraven. I even kind of like Icarus. I don't think they are terrible champions. But the question is where is their place within the game? It's one thing to have a champion that is fun to play, but are they useful? And so now we come to the crux of, I guess, what the thumbnail that brought you to this video is about. And that is, what is the problem with new and buff champions? And I think the problem is this guy right here, Winter Soldier. Specifically, Realm of Legends Winter Soldier. Now, some of you might be knowing where I'm going with this argument, but I think the problem is that we as a community have created this kind of microcosm, right? Where we go in and we make videos and we rate our champions on how fast, either whether it's by how many hits or how quickly they can, time-wise, take down Winter Soldier, because he is a very high health but low difficulty champion. And while this is a fun thing to do, it really isn't the best metric of how good a champion is. And that is because Winter Soldier is missing a vital part of his kit, and that is his Special 3 attack, which, as we all know, no matter how good you are, if you accidentally push somebody to their Special 3, you can have a rank 4 champion, and you can still get tanked by some of the in-game content. And so the problem here is that Winter Soldier just doesn't have a Special 3, and so we are allowed to have free reign with these damage rotations and these ways that we play the champions that in the regular game itself just aren't possible to do. And I know there are YouTubers that highlight this fact. They do highlight, you can't use the strategy in all this content. You can only really use it when there's no Special 3. But as we all know, this is really the only high-level content where there's no Special 3, right, is Winter Soldier and Realm of Legends. But the problem is I don't pretend to know all the ins and outs of what Kabam does with character development, right? From what our interview that we saw several months ago with Kabam Broccoli, it seems to be kind of a high stress process. It is very fast paced. You work on one champion, as soon as you're done, you go to the next one. And there's not a whole lot of extra time for testing and finding out where the biggest flaws are. And this is why we get some of the flawed champions that we do. But I think that maybe I'm spitballing here, I'm just kind of guessing, but maybe Kabam has the same mentality as a lot of the community. Let's test these damage rotations against a Winter Soldier type character, and let's see what the optimum damage rotation would be. But the problem is, your optimum doesn't matter when you can't use that optimum at all during the rest of the content, right? So we come back to what I was going to say earlier about our three latest champions. Now, each of them I feel has a little bit of a different issue, but they kind of encompass what we are seeing with many of the buff champions or the new champions that have been introduced to the game. Not all of them. Again, I'm not saying everybody is terrible. There are a lot of good ones. But this is just what I'm seeing as kind of a recurrent issue that would hopefully be fixed in the future to make the game more accessible. So let's start with Kraven. Kraven, I think, is a fantastic champion. I really love that they added in a brand new mechanic to the game, that root mechanic with the trap. I love this. I love that there's some strategy that goes into it. Now, we can make an argument that there's some problems with the AI and how it dashes back and interacts there that's going to interrupt your best rotation. I get that, but that's not really the argument. That's not what this is based on, because that's more on the AI and not on the champion himself. The problem that we get into, though, with Kraven is that he has this rotation to where you need to trap the opponent and then go ham on them. The problem is he's not equipped with a kit that lets you go ham on them and utilize him to the best of your ability. So what ends up happening is you go up and you trap the opponent and you go in, put on some critical bleeds, very short-lived critical bleeds I might say, even though they're paused during the trap. And then as you push the opponent higher and higher in their special 2, you really have to back off. I've had plenty of times where I have to back off and allow the opponent to wait out another 3 seconds of the trap where I could have been causing damage so that they can come out, and then I have to bait out a special 2. And it really stagnates the gameplay, and it makes this root mechanic that is so new and so innovative, I think, really just lose its luster, right? And so, again, Kraven is an excellent champ against someone who doesn't have a special 3, because you can just go in and keep on going in on this trap mechanic. Now, you might say, well, you don't want it to be so overpowered that you can keep on trapping the champion. And that's not honestly the case, because, you know, you trap a champion, they get out of the trap, there is still a reset timer there, and who knows what can happen on the next one. Maybe you get that special 2 again to push them into it. Maybe you don't. Maybe they activate it, and then in which case you're going to have to rotate through a special 1 and a special 2 again. Kraven is a good example of someone who I don't think is overpowered. I think he has a lot of great ability, but I think he's missing a big part of his kit, which is an innervate system, right? He needs to innervate the opponent while they are trapped, or at least for half of the trap, something like that, so that you can actually use Kraven for what he's supposed to be used for, and not just trap. I get in a couple hits. Oh wait, he was already at an SP2. Now I got to back off again and wait out the trap. I guess I'll just sit here for a little while. So this is an issue where his rotation is not being explored enough because of how it's set up. So that's one issue with Kraven. But the other issue is, where is he useful within the game with that kind of a mechanic? The root mechanic, as innovative as it is and as fun as it is, doesn't have a whole lot of places in the game, because you're still going to be pushing people towards their special 3. So again, it makes him a fun champion. It makes him kind of a unique champion that may be useful in some very specific, maybe variant content in the future. But as far as, can I take him, or would I take him into most content in the game? I would say no. I avoid him, actually, because I don't know where he's going to be that useful. It's going to stagnate my gameplay. We look at Icarus in the same way. Icarus has a similar issue in the sense that his damage rotation does great against someone where you don't have to worry about their special 3. But at the same time, you have to not only worry about gaining your power, but making sure that you're not losing the incinerate debuffs on the opponent. So you come down to the same thing where you can't keep on attacking and pushing them to closer to their special 3, but at the same time you have to maintain those debuffs on the opponent to increase your ultimate power level, right? You want to get that special 3 up and really dish damage out. So again, this is a champion who can do a lot of power, but it makes his gameplay very stressful with the fact that you now have this kind of honestly a quicker timer on his incinerate debuffs to get in, make sure you're not pushing the opponent towards a special 3, but be able to use him. It makes him, again, not as fun to play because he's a stress champion. And being in in-game content, pushing these later fights, variant content, Act 7, Abyss of Legends, if you're going that far, these things are already stressful enough. without you having to worry about trying to keep up your buffs or the debuffs on the other opponent in such a strict sense. And this was actually one of my original issues with Spider-Man 2099 when he came out, is if you wanted to do an optimum damage rotation, if he's not awakened and really high sig, it's very stressful to play Spider-Man 2099. Now, there are other ways around that. You don't have to do the ultimate damage rotation in order to get great damage and great utility out of him. So that's why I said earlier I may have misspoke on Spider-Man 2099. And then also looking at Cersei. Now Cersei is she's an interesting champion in that she is a tank of a champion. She can dish out a lot of damage. She does suffer a little bit from the same issues of, she has less luster, if you will, when it comes to looking at her damage rotation compared to trying to push opponent to a special 3. But I think the big issue with Cersei here is, even though she has this glancing buff, which is very useful, she really has no immunities at all. She has no way around some of the toughest nodes in the game. And this is where, again, I think that in her case, she's overall not a terrible champion, but that lack of immunities, again, makes it more difficult to use her in higher level content, with more and more nodes being applied, where you really have to have some type of immunity in order to play that content. So guys, with all this not rant, but just kind of observation being said, and let's even real quick, just an example of a buff champion, Joe Fixit, who I think is definitely better than before, but his rotation is just ridiculous. Trying to keep up with all the things going on in Joe Fixit's kit and trying to use him optimally just makes him almost too stressful to use in an already stressful in-game environment. So just to throw that out there for the buff champions. Now, let me say that I think that what needs to happen is that Kabam needs to really look at what kind of content they are putting out. What kind of stuff is upcoming? What things are happening in campaign, in side events, in variant content? Because these are all the in-game play field or fields of play, right? This is where we're all playing right now. And if you have a champion that just can't hang in that in-game content, what is the use of having a brand new or a buff champion that has no real place in that in that content? Jabari Panther is really good, but again, that such a crazy timing on her attacks and with her rotation, it makes me say, well, I could use her for, some of the lower difficulties in side events or side quests. But again, I usually don't even play those unless I just run out of other things to do, right? And so it makes a champion just kind of useless. And so I think that they really need to focus on making champions more useful. I love innovative rotations. I love new utilities and kits added to champions. I love this. I love innovation. But innovation has to come with a place in the current game. This is not several years ago now. It's not 2-3 years ago. This is 2021, about to be 2022. We need champions who can hang in the current content in the game. So I think immunities is a huge thing that should be at least a part of almost every single kit in some way, even if it's one immunity. But immunities are great. Even immunities that they gain through synergies are great, as long as the other champion that you bring in is still a good champion that's useful, right? But immunities is a big thing, but also node-specific kits, right? You look at someone like Warlock, who has both a poison and a bleed immunity, and it makes him really effective in certain nodes, and it makes him one of the best champions in the game. Overall, if Warlock honestly didn't have those immunities, I mean, you might defend me or defend against this, but I don't think he would be a meta champion. I don't think he would be one of the greatest champions in the game. His damage is just not really that crazy. But the fact that he has those two immunities makes him a better champion. Now, not every champion needs to be immune to everything, or needs to have a specific just, hey, this is great against encroaching stun, or hey, this is great against this. But they need to have something in their kit, in their rotation, that makes them effective against the crazy amount of nodes that are being placed on new content. If we're now in a scenario where you have all these true strike abilities on bosses to where you can't use Ghost, you're not going to be able to use Kitty Pryde, you're not going to be able to use Quake, which is fair. I don't disagree with that, which is fair in some cases, then we should have other ways to defend or attack these bosses or other champions without having to spend units. And I know that the game is for money. They are a company. Kabam is a company. They're there to make money. If they can't make money, they can't pay their creators and their designers. And that, obviously then the game won't survive. I get that. But you need to have the ability to use champions to beat content without relying on paying so many units, or without having to be one of the top 5% of players in the game. So maybe that end part there is a little bit of a rant, but that's really what I would love to see. I want to see especially more node-specific buffs. That's the best thing. Even if you don't have every single new champion be node-specific, take some of these older champions that just aren't relevant and make them relevant by making them node-specific in some way. Okay, whether it's a new immunity or a new way to counter a node, I think that is what's really going to boost the value of these champions in the game, because I would also know, or think I would know, that as a creator, you would hate to see your champion be relegated to the status of, well, let's say America Chavez. I like America Chavez, but most people don't. Most people do not care for the champion at all. And so, if you work really hard on a champion and then you just have, the entire community kind of poo-poo on her, I'm sure it doesn't feel good. I'm sure it doesn't feel good. And so I really just want new champions and buff champions going forward to have a better place in the game, because I love switching up champions to play with. I love not playing with the same champion in every single thing. In fact, I often look through my roster and say, can I bring somebody completely new in that I never play with? Because I love doing that. I don't like having the same team all the time. I want to explore the game more with different champions. So, guys, that was my not rant for today. I actually did make it almost all the way through without the edits and just kind of talking, and didn't lose my voice at all, guys. Let me just say, I really appreciate everyone for all the support on this channel. We've had amazing growth this year. This has been... I haven't even reached 1 year on YouTube yet with MCoC, but we've had an amazing year. I've got more content coming out for the rest of December, and then early in January I will do an account walkthrough, an account update, so everyone can see where I've made it in a year. I kind of wailed out this year. Next year will be a little bit different. I don't think we're going to be as wailing out quite as much. Some life changes for me are coming along, guys. But I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed the champion guides that I do. I'm enjoying these new synergy guides that I do. I hope you guys do too. I've enjoyed having you guys as subs and just as viewers. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you guys so much for listening to my whatever this was today, rant or not rant. Again, I always appreciate you, and as always, I will catch you on the flip side.